Are we running? Yeah, I think we're running. My dear friends, good evening. This is operator Starsky and my good friend Joni from Finland. It's very, very nice to see you guys. I missed you so much. I think it's been a week or something since my last stream. And tonight, my friends, we will talk about one notorious spaceship builder, if we can call him this way. Joni, before we start, I know that there's a lot of people following you on Twitter and on YouTube as well, but I think it will be good if you could tell just a couple of words about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Joni, I'm from Finland, I'm 31 years old, and I'm here today because, as operator Starsky said, I was insulted by Elon Musk a few days ago, but before going into that, I'm a PhD student at Charles University in Prague, and I'm Finnish, but I help Ukraine with the 69 Sniffing Brigade, or some people know it as Help 99. And I go to Ukraine from time to time when I do fundraisers with my brothers and friends, and then we bring trucks and drones, and that's how I've also met operator Starsky. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah. I remember back in it was either late 2022 or early 2023. There were convoys from NATO 69 Sniffing Brigade coming to Ukraine. That's when I met Artur Ray for the first time, and he actually was my first foreign friend. Person I used to watch on a YouTube and talk to and have podcasts together. First dude I saw for the first time offline, which was crazy. I couldn't believe my eyes. And that's when we met, by the way, back in those days. I think it was 2023 or something in winter.
Yeah, 23. Yeah. You were doing those tours or so back then in the area. Yeah.
Tours.
Time goes fast.
Yeah, I was showing the Bucha McDonald's because McDonald's in Ukraine didn't work for like a year almost, and when McDonald's opened in Bucha, we were extremely happy because, oh my God, McDonald's, come on. Joni, you made a video about this on your channel, but I'm sure that our friends and our viewers would really like to hear directly from you what exactly happened on Twitter the other day. Can you please share your story?
Yeah. So on Sunday, I was here in the countryside in Finland with my family, and I tweeted like I do most days. That's the way I fundraise for Ukraine. I post threads online, and I saw something that Elon Musk had done, and I think he had posted some disinformation about Germany and the UK. So I just made a small post where I said that Elon Musk is becoming the biggest spreader of disinformation in history, and that he's hijacking political debates, and that the EU should do something about it. It was just a simple tweet, didn't get much reach. It was just one tweet among others. Elon Musk was not tagged on it. I don't follow him. He doesn't follow me. The tweet was not addressed to him. And then I went to sleep. As a true Finn, I woke up during the night because Finland was playing ice hockey against the US, so I had to watch the game. And then when I woke up in the morning a bit late, I had received a message by Alex Kinash, who you've met also, and who sent me this screenshot, and I thought I was a photoshopped image, but it was actually a real screenshot from what had happened. And it was unbelievable. I mean, the tone of the message was not that surprising because that's how Musk is, but the idea that he had answered me at 2 or 3 during the night US time is just crazy, because again, I don't have that many followers and I don't follow him and so on. So yeah, it was quite crazy. And then crazy time has been, I mean, since then it's just been crazy because I've been receiving calls from all sorts of medias around the world, mostly from Finland, but also some from other places, and been going from interview to interview. And but hopefully it's calming down soon, so I'll get back to normal life.
Oh my God, I'm showing this tweet right now and Musk's
Yeah,
response to it. And it's crazy. I mean, he wasn't even tagged. How the hell did he learn about this tweet? I've literally no idea. And
yeah,
it took him like some effort to literally open it and like write a response in the middle of the night. That is
yeah.
completely mental, in my opinion.
It is. It is. It's pathetic. It's. I mean, if you're doing well, if you're the world's most richest person, most influential person, in my opinion, you should have something else to do than to be on Twitter at 3 a.m. insulting strangers. But that's the way he wants to do it. So that's what he's doing. And I mean, of course, there's been good sides to it as well. I've been trying to use it for to remind people about Ukraine and to talk about Help 99 in the interviews and so on. So hopefully we'll get some money for Ukraine and some reach for Ukraine. But there's also downsides to it. Quite a lot of hate mail and quite a lot of threats and messages. But I think because Musk is so aggressive himself online, I think his fans think that it's okay to be the same, and it's not okay. But that's how it is. Can't do much about it.
That is something I noticed as well. When people completely lack any respect to their opponents, like completely, all the talks about like having, a civilized conversation or even like responding to criticism properly, that is crazy. And for example, do you think it would be appropriate for Mark Zuckerberg to answer like that, to insult his users, for example, on his social
No,
media?
no, you wouldn't. But I
That,
think Zuckerberg is going to turn a bit like Musk over time, maybe because he's going to try to be like him and going to turn Meta a bit in the same direction as Twitter. But no, as a person, he would never do that, and it would never be okay for him to do that. So yeah, it's crazy. And you know how it is with keyboard warriors. They would never dare say it face to face or anything. And Musk is a guy. He has a million bodyguards, and he has a lot of money, so he can be a keyboard warrior. But yeah, you can really see that the fame has got to him and that he's turned a bit insane. And it's sad because he's a guy who had the potential to do great things. Imagine if you would spend half of the energy and money that he's using to attack allies of the US. Imagine if he would use half of that against China and Russia. What he would be doing, he would get a lot of done, and he would be really useful for the world. But no, instead he's attacking the UK and Germany and Finland, and never criticizing Russia and China.
yeah, definitely. We already have a commentary from one of the apparently big Musk supporters who says, I've adopted the policy of unsubscribing Ukraine channels who get into US politics and bashing Americans goodbye. First of all, dear whoever pretends to be American, because clearly your Google Translate didn't do its task. First of all, insulting people internationally is definitely not US politics, right? It's not US agenda. This is not how it works. Then, for example, there was this Russell Bentley, American citizen who went to fight for Russians. There was this Patrick Lancaster, another US citizen who went and became a propagandist for Russian media. He worked for Russia Today before Russia invaded Ukraine and things like that. Those will be attacked regardless whether they are Americans or not. Generally, we are not racist. We don't really consider race or nationality or religion when we attack bastards. This is what normal people do. We don't have this prejudice. So, but damn it, considering that Elon Musk is a big businessman, big CEO, wannabe geopolitical player, that is completely crazy. Do you think it's because he lost his mind after, I don't know, like acquiring power and all those billions of dollars that he has, and now he thinks that he can do like literally anything. What was the reason? Why did he react this way?
I mean, I think there might be a bit of a midlife crisis combined with ketamine and things like this in his life, but I think the main reason he's acting the way he's acting is very calculated. I think he's not losing his mind. I think he's realized that for him to succeed in reaching his dreams and getting the things done that he wants to get done, he needs there are certain things that he needs. He needs China because of their labor and because of their market and because of their natural resources. He needs Russia because of their natural resources. And then, of course, he needs the US because he lives in the US and he's American. So because of that, I think one reason he's attacking the EU and Europe in general is because Europe is the king of regulation. Europe is the only continent that could actually regulate him hard and that could limit him in his dreams. So for him, ideally, Europe should be very divided and very weak so that it cannot regulate him and cannot regulate X or ban X and so on. So he wants a weak Europe so that the US can deal with China and Russia and just make deals based on spheres of influence and so on. He really wants to avoid any sort of confrontation between the US and China, because any confrontation would mean that his dreams would be pushed away at least by a couple of years. So ideally, he wants the US and China and Russia to be friends and the rest doesn't matter so much. And ideally, if the US is a bit more authoritarian and he's in power, that's good for him as well. So I think he's just putting his business interests before American interests. And that explains why he's acting like this. And of course, once you start acting crazy on purpose for a long time, at some point it gets to your head and you become even crazier. But I think overall it's quite calculated. He's overplaying a bit this role that he's taken, and I think we should take him quite seriously in what he's doing.
I agree on that. And if he considers business interests, I believe that it's much better to trade with European countries, because I don't believe that any G7 country nowadays is more poor than Russia, because Russia's GDP, for example, is smaller than in Italy. Am I right?
Yeah. I mean, Russia is a economical midget when you look at the size of the country. It's between Italy and Spain in terms of nominal GDP. And when you look at the resources and the population, it should be such a huge economy. But no, it's smaller than Italy, and in the long run, it's going to get worse and worse because it's with the demographics that they have, they just cannot make it work. So in the long run, Russia is doomed. But I mean, I think the reason he's doing this is he doesn't really care about. He doesn't have the same rationale as a normal company owner who would want to sell cars or something. For him, whether Tesla grows 10% or 15% doesn't really make a difference. I think his investors also don't really care, because otherwise they would have gotten rid of him already. So I think for him, it's really about going to Mars and having as much power as possible on the world. And for that, you don't want to have Europe trying to slow you down, or you don't want to have a conflict between China and the US on Taiwan or things like that, because that would be bad, and that would mean that him going to Mars is not the priority anymore. So I think he's just thinking very selfishly about his Mars trip plans. I think that's the main reason why he's doing that, which is quite crazy, but that's how it is.
I think so. It's apparently, he bet everything on this trip, and he doesn't care what happens to Earth. After that, I really hope that he goes himself to Mars finally and never return. But do you think it's because he has this feature of like respecting bullies? You respect somebody who has like power over knowledge, power over success, because again, if we're talking about European countries, they are so much, like any given European country is so much more developed than Russia, which in my previous video I talked about it. They had this very big problem with Russian schools, because instead of investing in education, they invest everything in weaponry in order to kill more Ukrainians. And they invest another portion of money in disinformation to brainwash Americans who, and not all Americans, who are gladly believe all kinds of bullshit shared on Twitter. Unfortunately, not all of them, of course, but big portion. And I noticed one thing: they literally respect people who have might, like I don't know, Kim Jong-un, or like Putin, or if you have a lot of manpower, a lot of power, a lot of weaponry, then like you're the dude. I want to be your friend. What kind of shit is that? I mean, I respect scientists. I respect people who do good stuff for population, for general population on Earth. I respect people who fight for nature, for environment. I respect people who fight for human rights and things like that. At the same time, if we're talking about Russia, there's like, what kind of rights are we talking about? There's only one right: to like literally rob or rape somebody, go to prison, and then go and die in Ukraine. That is like a biological cycle of life.
And invading the neighbor as well.
Yeah. And I definitely agree with you that I don't believe that Musk would say that shit to your face. Because, like, guys, you don't fuck with Finns, okay? They torn like 300,000 Russians during the Winter War to shreds. Those guys are tough. Elon Musk apparently
At the end of the war, Ukraine will have torn more Russians than we did. So then it's
we will have a lot of sunflowers. Yeah, we will have a lot of sunflower. We will not know what to do with the sunflower oil in the end, because in the other video I made, I came up with a new method of counting Russian losses. You don't count their bodies; you count like the fertilized area of the land. It's very interesting. Oh my God! Why did you write that publication, by the way? What was the reason?
I'm just. I'm quite fed up with what Musk is doing in Europe. I'm not American, so of course, even if I disagree with what he's doing in the US, I can only say it. But at the end of the day, it's not my business what the Americans decide to do for their own country. But once he starts attacking Europe and spreading disinformation in Germany and Finland and the UK, then it's my business at that point. And the reason I wrote was because I think the EU should really have some stronger regulation to be able to access the algorithm of TikTok and X, and if they refuse, then ban those apps. Because even if there are many upsides, for example, for myself, X has been great for fundraising for Ukraine, and that's really nice, and that's why I also didn't respond to Elon Musk, because I didn't want to lose my account, because I want to keep fundraising. But at the end of the day, if they manage to change election results and control our societies because of that, then it's not worth having those apps. And that's why I'm writing about it, because I think the EU should be tougher on the regulation and even maybe ban those apps if no other solution is found.
Yeah, I agree on that. Wanted to ask you one thing about disinformation, but before I do, generally, friends, for those who don't know, Elon Musk is known for spreading disinformation massively. He doesn't fact check anything. Hank Green the other day made a video. You gotta check it on his channel. Literally 6 lies that Elon Musk published just in 24 hours, and he sincerely believed in that shit. Check it out. But regarding not just Elon Musk, but generally his platform, again, it's a known fact that it's massively used by Russian bots, by Chinese bots. Department of Justice last year sanctioned several Russian companies for creating and running massive bot farms to spread disinformation on the West, primarily in the United States, of course. There were many studies made regarding this topic. Also, Oxford University did their study regarding the Putin's bots that are literally dominating Twitter, and nothing literally can be done about that. BBC also made their research on this topic, and one thing that was interesting was that at some point Musk decided to cut a lot of his stuff, and after that everybody noticed that the Russian propaganda, also bullying, hate speech on Twitter, raised dramatically. That was insane. And another thing, The Guardian the other day also published it. It was a publication as for the last year. They talked about the EU's Digital Services Act, and this act concerns basically things like online security, all kinds of hate speech and things like that, and disinformation. And because Twitter doesn't comply with this policy, there was a risk that they would fine Twitter. And as far as I remember, Twitter would... Is it there? No, it's not there, but Twitter could pay something like 60 million euro or something like that. I'm sorry, I don't remember the numbers. I'm old. But considering that a lot of people quit Twitter generally and switch to other social media platforms like Blue Sky, for example, where I texted you generally. Do you think that Twitter will eventually go bankrupt or collapse? Is it possible?
If it would be a normal business, I think it potentially could go bankrupt, but they didn't buy it as a business to make profit. They bought it as a mean to push disinformation and gain power and keep power. And because of that, I don't think that they care so much if they lose some users. And Twitter is so big that even if half of the people leave, it's still going to be a huge platform. So my guess is that Twitter is going to get smaller and smaller over time, but it's still going to be big enough so that it won't disappear and it will still influence people. And that's where the tough debate comes on whether it's better to leave Twitter or to stay, because by leaving we weaken this tool that they have, which is good. But at the same time, again, for fundraising for Ukraine, for example, it's still quite good, and also for influencing opinions. When I write there, I know that every time some guy reads it who maybe doesn't think like me, but thinks about what I wrote and thinks maybe I'm right about it. So it's a tough one, but I think ideally it would die if it would become like Truth Social, like a sort of MAGA platform. Then normal people would never stay there, and that would be good. But I think Musk has so much money, and the people who helped him buy it are so powerful that at the end of the day, they don't care, and they can put a lot of money on marketing, and they can just keep it afloat, even if it's in a normal situation, that wouldn't be the wise business move to keep it on. But I think they will keep it going, unfortunately.
I believe that he's literally looking for some kind of sources to pay out for, to pay out to the investors who basically helped him acquire Twitter. And I know that currently, that's again, as far as I remember, the case of the previous year, he pays like the percentage, but not the whole sum, which basically is okay for investors, but not for Elon Musk. And nowadays, of course, all that stuff costs much less than in 2022 when he acquired it, for obvious reasons, of course. But what I wanted to ask you about is, do you believe that Musk literally doesn't care about Russian bots on Twitter? And maybe he finds it beneficial because they increase, like engagement and stuff like that. Or there is a chance that he can literally allow them do what they do, spread their disinformation and pro-Russian propaganda on Twitter. because I cannot blame him officially. We have no evidence that he literally works with Russians. But do you think it's possible, considering his narratives and everything that he spreads in his tweets?
Yeah, I mean, officially he needs to show that he's fighting against troll farms and against bots. So he's probably making a small effort to ban some of the most obvious ones to give some credibility to the platform. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he wouldn't give 100% on that effort. And I mean, he fired a lot of people when he bought the company, and my guess is that the effort being done right now is not the same as when the previous owners had it. So yeah, that's a good point. I think it's very much possible that he doesn't mind. And as we saw a few weeks ago when there was this debate about immigration and visas, Musk never had any issue with these accounts from the far right in the US who were spreading a lot of lies online. When he was during the campaign to get Trump elected, that was not a problem for him at all. But then once they started challenging him and his views about these visas, then at that point he said it's too much and he just banned their accounts. So yeah, he clearly has double standards, and I wouldn't be surprised if he had double standards on bots. And I think the best way to find out would be to have some pro-West bots and to see what he would do about them, if he would allow them to operate or not. And I actually think that it's a quite tough question. I don't have a definite answer for it, but I think it might be one of the only answers to the Russian bots, if we keep these platforms, would be to have troll farms that would spread facts and counter their disinformation with AI, the same way that they are spreading disinformation. But I mean, it's a tough question. I don't know, but that's something that we need to think about in the future, because I don't think that there's any other way if we keep those platforms.
Yeah. And by the way, speaking of pro-Western accounts and things like that, actually, those far right of all the MAGA who hate EU, hate NATO, and everything else, one thing they don't really understand is that we are MAGA as well. Ukraine, Finland, France, United Kingdom, we root for strong United States, we root for strong allies, we root for strong UK, France, Finland, because otherwise, why would we hate them, right? We support friendly competition, right? Which is proper thing. The biggest anti-MAGA movement, literally, is not Democrats. It's literally Putin, because he doesn't want great America. He wants America to be destroyed, as well as Europe, as well as all European countries. This is something those individuals don't really understand, including Musk. But Musk is hard to understand himself. I mean, if you want to understand Musk, you have to, I don't know, smoke, insult people, spread disinformation and be an asshole, and then maybe you will have a chance to understand Elon Musk. Okay, let's finish with Musk. Fuck it. Tell us about your charity. What do you do in Ukraine, and how often do you visit Ukraine?
So I'm just a bit of background. So all this started with Ragnar Sas in Estonia, who founded helped in 99 and the 69 Sniffing Brigade, and he happened to know my brother Jussi, and he convinced Jussi to join in 2022, and they did their first trips in the summer of 2022, and that's how it started. Ragnar had already done a few trips at that point, and then Jussi convinced my other brother Jere and me to join later on, and that's when we joined in 2023. And my brother Jussi has done 6 convoys, and Jere has done a few, and I've done 5. And then we have friends from Finland as well, Antti, Juuso, and Pekka and Tuukka and so on, and they help us as well. And what we do is every few months we set a fundraiser, we collect money, and then we have guys in Estonia who buy trucks with that money, and who fix those trucks, make sure that they're in good condition, and then fill them with drones and equipment, and then we drive them from Tallinn to Kyiv. And what's very nice with this organization with the 69 Sniffing Brigade is that it's extremely efficient in terms of money, because we don't have, most of the people working there are volunteers. The people driving the trucks from Tallinn to Kyiv are volunteers. There's no middlemen, as you've seen when you've been in Kyiv. When we've been bringing those trucks, we bring the trucks, then we give them to the units. One unit gets one truck, and then 1 month later there's another one. So they do one convoy a month, and I try to join every few months. Last time I went was in December, and I think the next time I'll go will be in the spring at some point. And yeah, the goal is to get as many of these trucks as possible to units that need them in Ukraine, and then also to get FPV drones and jammers. So that's what we do. And I think the organization has so far brought around 500 trucks, a bit more, and a few thousand drones. I think it's a bit over 10 million euros worth of equipment has been raised. And luckily we have a lot of volunteers, and we have some influencers who bring a lot of money. We have Artur that you talked about, and we have Jake Bro and Andrew Mercado, and a lot of great people who fundraise on their channels and bring money, and that's why I like this organization. Everything is well organized and very efficient. All the money pretty much goes into the trucks and the drones. So that's what we do. And yeah, we finished a fundraiser in December, and the next one will probably be in a few months. But there are many fundraisers going on right now as well. There's always some, and they actually made a fuck you retard fundraiser with a badge because of what happened. And if people are watching, there are many fundraisers, and if you donate money, you can donate to any of the fundraisers. It all goes to the same convoys and same trucks that go to Ukraine. And what's nice is when we go to Ukraine, we get to meet the soldiers who receive the trucks and hear their stories. And it's always different to hear the stories from the soldiers themselves who have experienced the war, and who are very, very grateful, great people when they receive that equipment, because they really need it. And yeah, I think that's where you learn the most about Ukraine and the war when talking with those guys. So it's great. And then on those trips, we have people who donate money who come on the trips with us, and that's how I met you as well, because on those trips in the past, when it was possible still, those who brought the truck, sometimes you would give them a tour of Hostomel and Bucha and the areas there, and it was really great. I want to thank you for that. That was also an eye-opening experience to see those places, and we all remember all the people who have been there. We've talked about it many times. It's always been something that reminds us why it's important to continue fundraising and getting equipment to Ukraine, and how close it was at the beginning of the war, that Russia could actually have almost succeeded in their goal, and how heroic the Ukrainians were who fought there. So yeah, that's been great. And I want to thank you for the tour there in Hostomel and Bucha. But yeah, that's what we do with the 69 Sniffing Brigade, and unfortunately, I think the war will continue for longer. So we will continue to do that as long as it's needed. So any donation, when people donate, it doesn't matter how much it is, even small donations, any money helps. And those who donate a bit more, from 100 euros, they can get these badges that they get home with the signs and so on. But and the nice thing also is the transparency, because there's a YouTube channel, and you can see the videos when when the truck is given to the units and so on. So everything is very transparent with this organization. So yeah, that's the work we try to do in Ukraine, to do our part to help at least a bit.
Thank you so much. And it was my privilege and honor to make that small tour for you guys. It was the least I could do, because you brought us trucks and drones and night vision devices. It was my pleasure. Undoubtedly, NAFO 69 Sniffing Brigade does insane amount of job delivering those trucks to Ukraine. So yeah, those guys are absolutely fantastic. We have commentary from one of the viewers who says, hey, I'm mostly MAGA. I've always supported Ukraine and was trained to fight Russia before most of you were born. So I thank you for that. I really wish most of people sharing your political views were like you, dear, I believe, sir or ma'am. No idea. I cannot tell from the nickname, but you have my big respect, because it's a proper thing to do. If you consider yourself a patriot of your country, you have to fight Russia, because Russia generally wants to see demise of your country, even if your country is Russia. Which, by the way, I wanted to ask you something. Have you ever seen Russian supporters of Ukraine?
That's a good question. Because I have actually lived in Russia for 1.5 years. I studied in MGIMO, and I think so. I studied in MGIMO for 1.5 years, but I studied in English there, so I don't speak Russian. I knew no Russian when I went there, but I've met quite a few Russians in my life. Let me think. I know some Russians who support Ukraine, but who are not born in Russia, who are actually like of Russian origin. I know some of them, and then I've seen videos of the volunteers. But it's true that thinking about actual Russians born in Russia, I know some who oppose the war, but I don't think I know any who actually support Ukraine, at least on a personal level. And that's, I mean, no words need to be said about that, but yeah, I think the only ones that I know that actually support Ukraine are ones that are not fully, or there might be some Russians who support Ukraine, but you know how it is. It's always a bit limited. Once you start talking about military aid and stuff like this, it's always they're a bit. They always think about sanctions and issues like that. But yeah, no, that's a good question. I had not thought about it, but yeah, it's a tough question. And I think some of those who actually might do, some of them might not dare say it as well. So yeah, it's a tough one. I know that there are a lot of Russians as well as, I mean, you know how it is, but there are a lot of them who also say they oppose the war. But then when you start actually talking with them a bit deeper about these issues, you notice that they still have this imperialistic mindset, and they still at the end don't see Ukraine or Finland as at the same level as they see Russia. And of course they've had this propaganda for decades and they've grown up with it, and it's not a fast process to get rid of it, but Russia has never started this process, so it's going to be a very long process once it starts one day, and it might take a lot of time before it does. But yeah, do you know some yourself who support Ukraine?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to see a lot of those guys in one place, you gotta go to Russian Legion Freedom for Russia, Russian Volunteer Legion. Siberian Battalion, Russian Freedom Corps, Russian Voluntary Corps, and generally I have several more people I can call friends online that came from Russia and they support Ukraine, and they don't support Putin, which I think is fantastic. There is like one of the biggest of them in terms of the audience. There's Dr. Mike on YouTube. He's American doctor, and he came to the US, I believe, when he was 11 years old or something like that, when he was a young boy. And he even dedicated a whole video to Ukraine, to the topic of supporting Ukraine. I believe he himself collects like funds to he fundraises for Ukrainian civilians. Not sure about Ukrainian armed forces, but civilians. That's he completely has my approval. Yeah, and
is he
also
the bodybuilder?
Which one?
Dr. Mike, is he like because I think there's a Russian guy called Mike in the US who's like a bodybuilder or something, but that's not the same guy, or
no. That's literally doctor of medicine, and like he's a legit doctor.
Yeah. Not the same.
Yeah, I think he has something like million something audience, and yeah. Then I met some people the other day, but literally most of them live outside Russia. I met like
Exactly.
a
Yeah.
woman at the gas station. We spoke in Russian, and she literally cried when we talked about Ukrainian refugees. She literally started crying. I was like, it was a bit
Mm.
awkward. And
Mm.
herself, she comes from like Belgorod, I think, Oblast of Russia, but it's like bordering region.
Right
They
next
were
to it. Yeah.
Ukraine
Yeah.
before, yeah, before Russia annexed that territory
Yeah.
100 years ago. So majority of them can be found outside of Russia, of course, and
Exactly.
even those people I know from YouTube, they don't live there.
No.
But in Russia, yeah, there is literally no excuse for people who support Russian terrorism whatsoever, in my personal opinion.
No. No. And I just wanted to add, I think in the Baltic states, because there's a large Russian-speaking population, of which some are ethnic Russians. Among them, there's a lot of people who actually support Ukraine, even if there is also people who support Russia among them. But among them, I know some people who are very much pro-Ukraine and ready to support. But they have, even if they are ethnic Russians, they consider themselves Estonians and Latvians and so on. So those who support Ukraine. So it's that's why they don't really count as Russian as we talk, because they are from outside. But yeah, good points. Good points.
Yeah, I also just noticed one very interesting commentary.
Mm.
Suomi K-31, also known as Finka, shredded a lot of Russians, which is true. But what you don't know about this submachine gun, my dear viewers, is that, just a second, I will copy-paste it from my screen so you could see this, because this is my favorite topic. Did it share? No, it didn't. Come on. Just a second, guys, because I really, really like to address this commentary. Okay, let me select and copy paste. Yeah. So, K-31 submachine gun, also known as Suomi, was produced before and during the Winter War. And for example, this one that you can see on your screens, that is not this submachine gun. That is literally ППШ, пистолет-пулемет Шпагина, or Russian submarine of Shpagin, submachine of Shpagin. That was literally copy-pasted from Finnish Suomi. And Russians, and I shit you not, Russians in all of their movies, in their literature, they all position this submachine gun as like national Russian blah 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 Wunderwaffe that has no analogs and shit. National Russian weapon. However, in reality, the Suomi submachine looked like this, and you can tell the difference. By the way, ППШ, the Russian version, also had the straight magazine, and also they had this round magazine. They're the same. They started producing ППШ with the straight magazine later in the late years of the World War II, and Suomi also had version with the round magazine. Like they had round magazines, not Suomi itself, but the magazines. Why is that? Because Russians enjoy stealing shit. What are the biggest needs of Ukrainian soldiers at this point, speaking from your opinion?
From my opinion, I mean, of course, it depends on if we look at what an organization like the 69th Sniffing Brigade can do, or what governments can do on a governmental level. I think there's a lack of air defense and a lack of cruise missiles and ballistic missiles, and I think those drones that are somewhere in between tactical and strategic, a bit like the Lancet, those I think it would be good to have more of them. And yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything that Ukraine has too much of. Of course, there's a lot of FPV drones, and that's increasing at a high pace. But But yeah, I think what people can do on a personal level as civilians and help for that, I think recon drones, FPV drones, and trucks are something that will always be needed, because it's not like most units have too much. There might be a few units that are very popular that really have a lot of equipment, but there are so many units that are new or that are not so famous and that don't have many trucks, and life just becomes easier for them to evacuate and so on if they have more. So I think, yeah, on a civilian level, trucks and drones, and then on a governmental level, anything that's possible, from shells to shells to FPV drones to but I think the best way to help you on a government level, I think the best thing that government should do right now is to put money on the Ukrainian defense industry, because the Ukrainian defense industry is capable of producing equipment that Ukrainians can use. They know how to use it. They can produce them fast. And the more we put money into that, the more Ukraine becomes sovereign and independent and relies less on allies. And because of that, I think it's just the best solution is to put much more money into the Ukrainian defense industry. I think Western countries should give billions more for Ukraine to produce IFVs and drones and strategic drones and cruise missiles and so on. But yeah, I've been advocating quite a lot for Norway to give more money. I love Norwegian people. I have a lot of Norwegian friends. I think Norway is a great country, very friendly people, and Norway is the only country in the EU that actually benefits from the war financially, because of them selling more energy to Europe, because Russia doesn't sell as much anymore. And because of that, every year Norway's sovereign wealth fund keeps growing faster than it was supposed to, thanks to the war. And Norway has really a lot of money they could use. Norway has a rule that they can withdraw, I think, up to 3% a year from the fund. So I think they should really give much more to Ukraine. They're giving decent amounts for a normal country of that size, but they could really give 5 times more and they wouldn't even notice the difference. And that money, I think, should go to the Ukrainian defense industry to develop serial production of cruise missiles and so on. I think you understand more because you've been actually fighting the war there, but I think obviously on a front level it doesn't make a huge difference if you have a lot of cruise missiles and strategic drones and so on. But I think for the economy in Russia, when Ukraine destroys its energy infrastructure for producing oil and gas, that has a huge effect that is much bigger than the losses that they have at the front on losing one battle somewhere. And because of that, I think it's very important, even if it doesn't help the front as much, it's really important to help Ukraine hit Russia's economy with these strategic drone and cruise missile and ballistic missile attacks. And Ukraine needs money for that. And it's insane how fast Ukraine's defense industry has increased its production during the war. And that needs to be helped. You've been lucky you have some really great people who have been taking care of that Ministry of Strategic Industries. And that's I think those are the ways. But what about you? Because you know more, because you've been fighting there. What do you think is the thing that's missing the most?
Long-range weapons and air defense right now. If even 2023, some of the biggest needs were like trucks and drones. Nowadays, I would say that it's strategically long-range missiles and air defense, because more than 1,600 Russian strikes against the energy infrastructure were conducted already in Ukraine. And this is something extremely crucial for the almost 4th year of the war soon. Like on a different levels, there are different needs. It's obvious. I could talk more on an operational level and tactical level back in those days. Now I can talk a bit more about the strategic level, because I started learning this side and learning the opinions of Ukrainian generals and military experts. And strategically, we need to protect the sky still. And we need more long-range weapons that we can operate. And Ukraine will be developing its own weapons, of course. It already modifies its Neptune missiles that have quite some potential. Considering the Russian warship and other targets and other ships that turned submarines. Also, we have another commentary from Miki Chow Mein. Suomi is a far superior submachine gun than Pepesha. It got a nice slow rate of fire and is far more accurate and easy to handle. And I didn't shoot Suomi, but I can agree that generally whatever Russia produces in terms of their weaponry is crap. Take Makarov pistol, legendary Makarov pistol, 9x18 millimeter. That was snatched completely from Walther PPK. Walther PPK is James Bond's favorite handgun. So if Walther PPK is a legit handgun, Makarov pistol, the PM, I call it the pistol of masochist because it's really, really hard to even shoot yourself using this weapon. It's better to, I don't know, like throw it at somebody. I already told my viewers that one time I had PM produced in 1990. So at 25 meters, in order to shoot the target, like in order to hit target, okay, not precisely, but like hit target, I had to aim like way to the left, like and way down. And it wasn't because I suck at shooting, like no, I don't. But this one, it was a freaking like a vacuum cleaner, you know. If vacuum cleaner was a weapon, that would be probably Makarov pistol. The Pepesha, same story. Stechkin. If we're talking about the APS, automatic pistol of Stechkin, which was the first Russian Soviet weapon that was not like snatched, not like stolen, but it was created by Stechkin himself. He literally put a lot of effort into creating it, even though it looks exactly like Makarov pistol, only a bit larger, which looks like Walther PPK. But it was the real weapon produced by Soviets, like for real, like themselves, okay? And it doesn't suck. It can shoot bursts, like shoot automatically, like it's nice. But its cost was too high because generally when you create something and you optimize, you standardize the manufacturing process on the West, you have like this good level of quality and appropriate level of cost. In Soviet Union, because their economy sucked, like the level of quality was good, the cost was insane. That's why they could not produce a lot of them. But that one was not bad, not bad. Actually, it was a weapon for like tank crews, artillery crews, you know, people who don't have much time to fuck around with like big AKs. Speaking of Ukraine, by the way, what cities did you visit?
Unfortunately, I haven't visited that much because every time we go, we go for just, I mean, it's for the convoy, so it's not tourism, even if we stay for 2 days. So we just drive through from the border until Kyiv and then back. Of course, we get to see Western Ukraine a bit and drive through some cities and some areas there. But yeah, I mean, after the war, when one day it will be over, I really want to spend a few weeks in Ukraine to visit properly and to see some of the places more. But yeah, unfortunately, it's mostly Kyiv and Lviv that we see when we go. So not much more. But there's a lot of beautiful countryside in between those two. Some really pretty places, and yeah, I really look forward to go to Kharkiv and Odessa and so on one day. But not yet, unfortunately. Yeah.
Speaking of Lviv, by the way, did you accidentally find it very, very similar to like Prague?
Yeah, there are some similarities. I've only driven in the night because we always drive there in the night when we arrive there. But it is, you can see that it's a historical city in many ways, and with these the ground with these I don't know how you call them, the small kind of like not bricks, but the stone things on the ground and stuff, and those are really slippery with the car. Gotta drive careful there, but it's no, I think that's a really cool city. Also a place I'd like to visit much more with more time one day. But I mean, Ukraine has tons of interesting places, and I mean, Kyiv is a very very nice city as well. And yeah, but it's unfortunate, but it's when we go there, it's not for tourism, so we don't stay. We just get the stuff done and then go back with the night train, and then come back later on. But one day I will visit more properly.
Yeah, absolutely. And because it's a good tradition on my channel, what food did you like most in Ukraine? And not necessarily Ukrainian traditional cuisine, but generally when you were in Ukraine.
So we have often when we come to Ukraine, we have these few things that we do. We go to the same restaurants often, or there are a few restaurants that we go to. I've had amazing Georgian food in Ukraine, like really nice. This, is it Mama something, or one of the restaurant? It's a chain, I think. Really cool Georgian food that they have, but in Ukrainian food I really like. Before starting the meal, to put some pork fat on the bread, and I think there's some stuff with beetroots also that goes with it, or some at least purple stuff that I don't remember the name, but that's super good. And of course, borscht and yeah, it's just when we go to these restaurants, often we order tons of stuff on the table and we eat. So I don't know the names of the things, but it's all extremely tasty. And yeah, let's say we don't lose weight when we when we go to Ukraine, we eat well. So it's and actually, gas stations in Ukraine have quite good food as well. I've had a lot of good food at the gas stations in Ukraine, and yeah, I mean, you can find all sorts of good stuff. But yeah, I've had some amazing Georgian food there, and every time we go to Kyiv, we go to Georgian restaurant there. And actually, last time when we went in December, we went to eat with some volunteers from the Foreign Legion, and ate with them, and they also are big fans of Georgian food. They really liked it. But yeah, Kyiv is an international city. You can find all sorts of stuff. One thing I need to try. I've never had sushi in Kyiv, but one day I will I will try that as well. What's your favorite Ukrainian dish?
My favorite Ukrainian dish, hard to tell. Oh my God, I think vareniks with cheese, because we have like dumplings, vareniks, pierogi, that's the same. So we have dumplings with sweet cottage cheese with raisins, and those are, well, I would
Really
not
good.
mind, swallowing like 10 of them. But generally in Ukraine, like Ukrainians in Ukraine, we don't often go to some national Ukrainian restaurants for obvious reasons, because generally we like stuff like sushi, like Georgian restaurants. Georgian restaurants are extremely popular among Ukrainians, literally because like this stuff tastes so good. Ukrainians love shashlik, Ukrainians love hinkali, so we absolutely love this stuff. And sushi, of course. I will tell you one really, really cool place that is my favorite in Kyiv. Not a lot of people know about it. Yeah.
Looking forward to
and speaking of the lard that you put on the bread, right?
Yeah.
So this lard usually comes with garlic, like it must go with garlic, of course. And that purple stuff that you also can put on it, is it hot?
Yes, a bit hot. So maybe a bit horseradish type, a bit kind of like, yeah, exactly. That's the stuff I was talking about.
Yeah, that's a horseradish. We consume horseradish with another Ukrainian dish that is called holodets, that is basically jelly meat. It's like meat, but like proper meat, right? In jelly, and it's like you gotta eat it cold. You put a lot of horseradish. I remember one of my relatives who came from Lebanon, by the way. He didn't know about this stuff, and we gave him like this holodettes, and we give him like this small plate of horseradish, so he would just put a bit of it, and he takes like this spoon and puts it like in his mouth, and we're like, "The hell are you doing, dude? Like, don't do that!" And he's sitting there. And he's like, he turns red like horseradish itself, but like he keeps smiling and crying. It's extremely hot. It tastes like wasabi probably, or something like that. Something like, maybe not as sharp as wasabi, but still really, really spicy. Tell me this. What can you tell me about the dynamics in terms of support for Ukraine? In your opinion, does it change over time? Does it decline? Does it rise? Or there are like periods? What can you tell me about this?
I think in Europe in general, we've been waiting since the beginning of the war that it would go down at some point, that people would just get tired of it and so on. And I guess, as you said, there are moments, it's a bit cyclical, it goes up and down from time to time. But I think it hasn't happened the way that people expected. A lot of people were convinced that maybe in a year after the beginning or something, people would stop. But for example, with my brothers, when we fundraise for Ukraine, we fundraise more now than 2 years ago, for example. So it's in the total of things. Of course, some people get tired, but I think people have managed somehow. Also, maybe thanks to the breaks, it's important to have these breaks. Sometimes people are mad when there is information on the news about Syria or some other places, but I think sometimes it's also good to have a bit of this break for people not to always hear about it and so on, to then remind them a few weeks later that actually the war is still going and we need to give more aid. So it's not really an issue for us, at least when we fundraise with my brothers. But I think the 69th Stiefing Brigade is fundraising more money recently than before. So at least for this organization, it's not going down. For others, I don't know. I really hope that European countries on a national level and not on a voluntary level understand that if the US becomes a bit less reliable, which we don't know, maybe the US will continue as before, but no matter what, Europe needs to step up. And it's very, very cheap for Europe to help Ukraine compared to the cost of not helping Ukraine. And some countries have done okay, but overall, I don't think there's any country in Europe that has done enough. And everyone can do more. There are some countries that need to do a lot more than they've done, but there's no one that has really exceeded or done like as much as they could. I think we could easily double everyone what we've given, and it wouldn't really be something that we would notice on our daily lives. And I'm not too worried. I think people understand, even if Russia is really good at propaganda and they score some propaganda victories from time to time, but at the end of the day, there's enough people in Europe who understand that this is crucial for Europe and who understand that this is wrong so that there are enough people who understand it, and because of that, there's enough money coming in, at least for it to be enough so that there's no massive crisis because of that. But ideally, of course, there would be more aid, and hopefully we can convince governments to give more. But I think overall it's gone better than many feared. I don't know if you've noticed any huge difference. Of course, sometimes it goes down, but yeah.
Well, it depends. If we're talking about global perception of this of Ukraine and support for Ukraine, I would say that it goes up and down, but globally, people change their opinion over time, unfortunately. And I blame, of course, Russian propaganda, because it went absolutely nuts in late 2022. Early 2022, I didn't see anything like that, but late 2022, when they realized that they're not reaching their strategic objectives, they literally started pushing their Russia Today's bots and expanding their bot farms. They went completely nuts. So as statistics shows, and I believe that was it The Guardian that published the recent, I think The Guardian that published the recent poll conducted in different countries. Even though still a lot of people, I would say like half of Western population supports Ukraine, but number of people who want to support Ukraine until Russia's withdrawal is declining slowly, and the number of people who want, like peace at all cost, which basically to Russia, peace means only one thing, that is Ukraine disappears. So those people, unfortunately, their number grows. But what we can do to combat Russian disinformation? Unfortunately, not much, because Russian disinformation has a lot of investment. They have enormous funds invested in Russian bot farms, in the technologies, in all those Russian communication agencies. And those guys that work there, they are not stupid, actually. And one thing, we will address that question in the chat a bit later, but one thing I would like to tell you, my friends, is that propagandists, in my personal opinion, Russian propagandists and info technologists, they are much worse than Russian invaders. Because even though, yes, Russian invaders, they loot and rape and steal toilets and do all kinds of crazy shit, but when we talk about Russian invaders in general, right? What's the picture? You go to the recruitment center because you have like a sick wife and a young kid, and because you cannot fix anything in your country yourself, you want to earn money by going to another country and kill people there. That is like Russian mindset. But generally, you're told that you can easily earn a lot of money, and you go to Ukraine, told that like everything's fine. Russia is already fighting in the outskirts of Lviv. 99% of Ukrainian army disappeared, and Russia, Победа, and everything else. But then you go there and you can see like your friends massively dying in meat assaults, and then like FPV drone crashes, you lose legs and you bleed to death. Like that's it, But you go there because you grew up in that society. You grew up in the environment full of violence that taught you to be a violent person. You don't know anything else. You know that you need to commit violence against others, otherwise they will commit it against you. That is like your Russian style, your way of life. Russian propagandists and people who create bullshit for Americans, for Italians, for French, for Germans, they are much worse because they know that they lie. Because they know that what they say is bullshit. Because they know that they're not fighting for good things. They're not fighting for good cause. They're fighting to continue this genocidal war against Ukraine and hybrid war against other nations in Europe and in South America, North America. They're fighting against civilized world, and they know it. Stupid Russian infantry, they may not know it. And generally, like, I don't care. It doesn't justify them at all. But generally, when you're born in Russia and raised there through those generations of zombies, there's a big chance that you will grow up violent and stupid the way they are, right? But cunning Russians like Gambashidze Pidor and people like that, they know that they are fighting for terrorism. They know that they're not fighting for a good cause. They know that they spread lies, and they clearly understand this. So those are much worse, in my personal opinion, than those idiots. One thing that makes them worse is that Russian infantry, you can eliminate them, right? You can use them to fertilize Ukrainian soil. Those fucks who create blood farms and everything else, they are protected by our own ideology that defends freedom of speech. And when they speak, knowing that they speak bullshit that results in human casualties, in destabilization in different countries, when they speak, they know that they are basically conducting informational terrorist attacks, and they are protected by such thing as freedom of speech. So that's why they are the worst, trust me. And one thing that makes me laugh my ass off, literally, that all supporters of American isolationism, Elon Muskite, and everybody else, they generally don't respect anybody else. They respect power, they respect Putin and shit. I'm talking about those supporters of Russian terrorism who also support American isolationism. Thank God, not a lot of them, but enough. And they respect power. But at the same time, they are so funny because year after year, they were literally consuming Russian disinformation delivered to them through Tucker Carlson, through Tim Pool, directly from Russian studio in Moscow to American brain, directly. And they were so happy consuming this. They were so happy eating this bullshit and thinking that they know supreme truth, facts. That is insane. They are so funny at, this, never admitting the fact that they are so weak in terms of combating Russian disinformation and disinformation in general. Flat earthers, etc. Joe Rogan with his fucking aliens. Anyways, we have a good question. Did you want to say something?
I just wanted to say that, what also makes these people worse, those propagandists, is that they want this war to happen, but they don't want to get their hands dirty. So they send the poor people and the normal people from Russia to fight, and they are somewhere in St. Petersburg or Moscow enjoying their life and pushing the propaganda and making the war worse. But they're ready for the war and for the genocide, but they're not ready to go there themselves, which makes it even worse because they make others do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, finally we got to this commentary here. VJ Teleriver asks, has Joni tasted Ukrainian beers?
Yes, I have. I have tasted Ukrainian beers. I unfortunately don't remember the names of the brands, but I've had quite a few different Ukrainian beers in Ukraine, and good ones as well. And also, of course, in Finland they sell some more mainstream Ukrainian or more famous Ukrainian beers. We have Obolon and the Putin Huilo beer and stuff like this, and they are sold, and we buy them, and they're nice. But I have tasted Ukrainian beers, and also Ukrainian stronger liquors.
Well, yeah, undoubtedly. Another commentary, Kamil Horvat asks, Russian infantry may be stupid, but they are strong. So open the list of world's champions of boxing, for example, and tell me which flags of which country prevail there. And to explain this, because life in Ukraine was tough, when you see a Ukrainian teenager, that's usually either a wrestler or a boxer. But unlike in Russia, we were training to become more disciplined. We were training to be able to defend ourselves, not to go to another country and rape somebody. And generally, we are Europe. We're not Russia. So I would not underestimate Ukrainians. Vitaly Klitschko, come on, Usyk, Gvozdik, Lomachenko, you name it. So another thing, we have quite a few questions. Liquidity split. Does Ukraine have good pizza? Did you try pizza in Ukraine?
I have had pizza in Ukraine. I don't think that I was at any special place. I wasn't like in the best pizza place in Ukraine, but it was normal. It was normal pizza. I've seen some pictures of Blinken having pizza in Ukraine, so maybe I need to go try that pizzeria where he went with Kuleba back then. But yeah, I'm sure. Actually, I've had pizza many times, but most of the pizza I've had was actually at the convoy delivery when we give the trucks to the units, and that's just some chain pizza. It's good pizza, but it's not special. But it's normal chain pizza. But yeah. I'm sure there is some good pizza in Ukraine that I just need to eat more pizza when I'm there.
Is Ukraine going to be constrained by Chinese drones, motor restrictions? That's a problem. And unfortunately, a lot of parts that we can find nowadays to build drones, they come from China. Not only motors, but a lot of other things, a lot of other parts. I think my brother could explain that much better than me, but that's generally what he said in some of our previous streams. He said that, unfortunately, this is fact. A lot of those parts, they come directly from China. That's why it's possible that, at least on tactical or operational level, we might experience some troubles with that. This one, do you think there will be big protests again in Belarus these coming elections? I would really like to know your opinion on this.
That's a good question. It's if you look at all the places Russia has been active in all around the world, it's all crumbling everywhere at the same time. If you look at it, Syria is crumbling, Sudan is crumbling. Russia had to change sides in Sudan. In Myanmar, it's crumbling. In Venezuela, it might be crumbling in a few days. And in that sense, you would think that in Belarus, it could be crumbling as well. But at the same time, if looking at Russia has some military presence there, Belarus has been, they have the practice from the last election in terms of beating the population down and scaring them and arresting a lot of the people who are a bit more active. And then you also have some of the more capable Belarus people who have actually left to Ukraine to fight against Russia. And I don't know if those people, some of them are able to go back to Belarus at the election time. But all dictators have an end limit deadline at some point. At some point, the people just can't take it anymore. And it's going to happen to Lukashenko as well. But yeah, I can't really give any prediction on if it's going to happen now or not. But on paper, you would think that people would not accept the next election as they did last time. But it's quite hard to protest there. So I don't know. What's your take on it? Do you think that it's going to...
I think that is possible, but unfortunately, a lot of people who could really participate in those protests and do a lot, nowadays they are already fighting. They are fighting in the regiment of Kostuy-Skalinovsky, that is Belarusian voluntary regiment, fighting inside of fighting in frames of Ukrainian armed forces against the Russian invaders. And there's quite a lot of Belarusian volunteers as well. So considering that there's quite high presence of Russians, including Russian Wagnerites and Rosgvardia and Russian FSB in Belarus, I don't think that it will be possible, but if it will, oh my God, Syria collapses, Belarus collapses. I think Russia is fucked big time.
Yeah, Yeah, and
if,
even
if it
Armenia.
happens.
Yeah, yeah. No, Russia is, because they're so overstretched in Ukraine. They're not capable of doing anything else, and people who smell blood make moves, and Russia cannot do anything. But Belarus, as you said, it's a bit of a special case because it's so close, and they have these National Guard guys there, and so on. So yeah, let's cross fingers and hope for the best. But
Yeah. Another question. I think Russia is fracturing. People see Putin as weak, so they would logically think now is their chance. What should Georgia go? What should Georgia do? I think Georgia must fight.
Georgia do.
What do you think?
Yeah, of course, and I mean, I think that they've been continuing for a long time now with the protests, but as as you know from the Ukrainian experience, if you want to succeed with those protests against the government that is cheating you in elections or being traitors to the country, it's a long and complicated process to make it happen. And in Georgia, they've been practicing this for a long time, and the government has seen how it worked in the past, and they've seen what happened in Ukraine, and they're probably ready to go very far and get a lot of Russian help before actually giving up. But yeah, as you said, fighting is the only option. The other option is to become a Russian vassal state, and that's not better in any way. So yeah, I hope that they manage to continue what they're doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at countries that were occupied by Russia or turned into its vassal states, like Abkhazia, South Ossetia, nothing good happens there. Just check them on Google, okay? Google images. You gonna love it. And at the same time, countries that were occupied by evil, rotten West, like Georgia, Japan. That's the difference. That is why we don't want Russia in Ukraine. Another question: do you think Ukraine should have nukes?
I mean, I'm not against Ukraine having nukes, but I think that on the short run, it's not gonna happen. Probably in the short run, even if I'm not a specialist of this subject, but I think it's all countries that have a neighbor like Russia should consider it when it's possible. But I think right now it's maybe not the number one priority because there's a lot of other issues as well. But yeah, on paper, why not? Because you need something to defend yourself, and if the West is behaving in a way that they don't want to give any protection to Ukraine, then Ukraine needs to make some moves, and the same applies to South Korea and maybe Japan and so on. So I think, and Poland, for example. So if the US doesn't want countries to start having nuclear programs, then they better give some help, because otherwise a lot of countries are going to start thinking about it, at least. What's your take on it?
Pragmatically, yeah, Ukraine should have a nuclear weapon. Pragmatically, okay? But sometimes it's much more valuable to be more human than pragmatic, right? And from human standpoint, why Ukraine why Ukraine gave up nuclear weapons? It's because back in the days, early 90s, when Ukraine had world's third largest arsenal of nukes, Ukraine was pretty much isolated internationally due to the United States, for example, because they saw Ukraine as a threat, which was kind of true because all the ICBMs that Ukraine had, they were to some extent more or less aimed at every American city, right? But because Ukraine stopped being Soviet and communist, and we wanted to reintegrate ourselves back in the Western society, we said, guys, no problem. There are nukes. Here they are. You can do whatever you like, but please, let's be friends again. So since that moment, Ukraine became one of the biggest East European allies with the United States until this day. So we were never enemies of the United States. We were never enemies of Western countries. And I support this idea. So pragmatically, yeah, Ukraine should have something to defend against Russia. Nukes sound like an option. But again, nukes, like a human part of me doesn't want any country to have nukes, because this is a weapon that either doesn't work or kills everything, okay? For example, Putin's red lines, they are so red, so today Ukraine shoots all it has deep into the Russian territory, and Russia just keeps responding with those red lines, one more time, and, we will launch some Oreshkin with a nuclear warhead. But reality is that it doesn't work. But then, if it works, everybody dies on planet Earth. So, as a human being, as a person who loves peace, I don't want Ukraine to have nuclear weapons. As a human being that loves peace and hates Russian terrorism, I think that could be an option. But what could be even a better option is, and I completely agree on that with President Zelensky, is Ukraine's membership in NATO, because that stuff is something that works. Not a single NATO country has ever been invaded or attacked by Russia. So, not in terms of hybrid warfare, of course, but in terms of military power. So, until this day, NATO works. That's why I believe that this can be much more efficient than nuclear weapons. And also, if Ukraine allows itself to have nuclear weapons, it gives a bad example, bad signal to other countries, which we would not really like to see having nuclear weapons. You see, Russian invasion of Ukraine became a really, really bad example for countries like China that now threatening Taiwan, countries like North Korea. They realized that you can do that, Nuclear weapons are the same. We should not do that, because this will give other people, and some of them don't have good intentions, that they can also have nukes, and that would be really, really bad, in my personal opinion.
I agree, and I think also some countries might have decent intentions right now, but then maybe in 20 or 30 years someone gets in power there who doesn't have those intentions, and then it becomes an issue again. So that is very true.
Yeah, and that will happen 100%, because unfortunately people never learn. I mean, we do, but over generations, all that knowledge that we acquired over years through pain and tears and blood, it disappears somewhere. I have no idea. Angelika asks, Ukrainian schnapps, what do you recommend?
That's for you, because you know the names of them.
Okay, so we have winter, right? In winter, people usually catch things like cold and flu. So one recipe that I know from a military doctor is, and don't quote me on that, but I tried it once and it kind of helped, is Ukrainian pertsivka. Pertsivka is basically Ukrainian 40% strong beverage, 40% alcohol, which is like vodka, only horilka, right? And it comes with red pepper. So you take this stuff and you mix it with honey and you drink it together with either lemon with sugar, just like you drink cognac, or with orange. So if you feel a bit sick, you can do that before you go to bed. In the morning, you will be fine. This shit burns for real, but it's really good. So pertsivka, find it in any store you can find it. And another one. What do we... Starsky at 4,008... my God, 408,000 subs. How fast is that growing each month? Not that fast, as you might think, my dear friend, because it grows faster when there's a bigger reach and, of course, bigger engagement for any given video, which totally depends on the algorithm. Algorithm is a magical kingdom. You can do so much to make your video viral, but there's a big chance that it will not work. So I stopped caring about being viral completely. I just enjoy doing what I do, if I can call it this way, because generally my channel is nothing like entertainment, nothing like Microsoft Flight Simulation channel. It's literally channel about war and tragedy. So this channel, even though I have this big and loving family, you, my dear friends, but it's not something I am proud of. Speaking of my channel, it's not something that I deserved using my work or whatever. It became known literally because unfortunately war came to Ukraine, and if I could trade this channel to possibility to resurrect my friends who died, I would do that immediately, 100%. But unfortunately, we cannot do that in the real life. But speaking of growth, I think it's about 1,000 people per several videos with good reach, something like that. And before we finish this stream, we have a question from Ali. She is our courageous moderator. She asks, "Can you ask Joni for a link to where we can get his t-shirts?" And I'm sure that people would love to get some of your "FU retard" stickers and things like that to support your campaign.
Yeah, there's if you go on help99.co, which is the website, so help99.co, there you can see a part where it's written "Our Initiatives," and there you can donate money for the trucks, and then those who donate 100 or more receive these stickers, which are kind of like military badges that you can stick to your arm with this "FU retard" text on it. But yeah, help99.co, and all the money from there goes to for the trucks and drones. So yeah.
Thank you so much. And generally, Joni, where can people find you? What sorts of platforms do you use?
Yeah, so I use X, Blue Sky, and YouTube. I think X in the long run is going to be a bit of an issue, and I might get banned one day. So I think if people want to watch what I write, I think Blue Sky and YouTube. I'm going to post more and more on YouTube. I have built less than 20 videos so far, but I'm going to buy myself a better quality camera and start doing it more professionally. So I think YouTube, and you can see, I think in this live stream, you can see my my YouTube channel there. So I think, yeah, if you subscribe to my YouTube, then you'll see more content from me during this year about Ukraine and about Elon Musk and about Trump and about Russian disinformation and so on. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. We have another question. Do you think Putin realizes he made a huge mistake by invading Ukraine?
Yes, I think I don't, yes and no. I think he realizes deep inside he must know that it didn't go as planned. But at the same time, I think he convinces himself that this needed to be done and that he's right and so on. But I think deep inside he understands that things don't go perfectly, but he likes to see things in a historical perspective, and I think he probably thinks of himself as some sort of savior of Russia who maybe didn't do perfectly during the beginning of the war, but was so strong and so courageous that he ended up overcoming all these issues and blah blah blah. But the thing is that that's not going to happen. He's not the Soviet Union, he's not Stalin, he's just and he doesn't have lend-lease from the US. He's just Putin leading Russia, and things are not going to go his way. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think he realizes that he made some mistakes?
Absolutely. I believe that, first of all, he doesn't know how to finish this war, because this long war was definitely not his intention, not his plan. He planned an operation that would last for 2, maybe 4 weeks max. And that's considering like suppressing everybody who could resist. So he didn't expect it to last 1 year, 2, 3 years, and generally every month of this war costs Russia enormous money, cost them enormous resources. That again can be directed to like things like education, because I started talking about their schools in 2003. The Ministry of Education of Russia reported that every third Russian school requires renovation. And in 2024, and of course, like there's money were dedicated to fix this issue from the Russian budget, etc. In 2024, they reported that already 1/2 of Russian schools requires renovation. So, as we can see, they don't spend their money appropriately, and instead of financing everything that is critical, that is crucial for people, education. You cannot accommodate 900,000 Russian kids in 2023. That was the case. Instead of that, of course, they need to invest more in killing Ukrainians and destroying communications in the Baltic Sea and things like that. But currently, Putin understands that he has to play this war of attrition, and he understands that he cannot last long, right? But he knows how to wait, because after the elections finished in the United States, he now switched all of his attention, all of his bot farms to the European platforms, and now he spreads disinformation massively in Europe, in Germany, and he expects that over time support for Ukraine in Europe decreases so much so Russia can withstand the war of attrition. At this very point, we have advantage over Russia. Russia cannot win because the countries that support Ukraine, they are 40 times richer than Russia, at least 40 times. So Russia literally cannot win this war. It's not backed by anybody else, by any other superpower. China, meh. Okay, China doesn't invest in Russia. China takes money from Russia. That's a big difference. And North Korea, again, meh. So again, North Korea doesn't give Russia shells for free. Russia pays for that. So Russia is not backed by civilized countries. Russia is not backed by superpowers. Russia cannot win. If Russia doesn't gain any significant informational success in Europe and the United States, and by informational success, I mean shaping the opinion of public through media, through social media, through paid opinion makers, Tucker pools, right? That support to Ukraine must be stopped. And as we can see, the people go in this direction slowly, unfortunately. So if Russia manages to do that before 2026, then I believe it has chance to win the war of attrition against Ukraine. If Russia fails to do that by 2026, I believe that Russia collapses big time. But why 2026 is because there was a study conducted that showed that Russian losses in terms of tanks, artillery, and Russian budget will meet a critical point in middle 2026. So in 2026, Russian expenses on war will reach more than 50%. Also, their storages will deplete so much, so they won't be able to conduct ground operations effectively Even today, we can see that they have shortages in terms of tanks and armored vehicles. We can see plenty of Russians driving Ladas and golf carts and motorcycles, not because they like bikes. It's because they literally don't have that many tanks as they did, because they lost them. So 2026, that is my humble opinion, that will be the critical point of this war. So that's just like my tiny prediction. I'm ready to bet like dirty $10 on that. What do you think? How long will?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's somewhere between 2025 and 2026 when it starts getting critical for Russian depletion of Soviet equipment, and also with their central bank not managing to stop the inflation. Even if they keep increasing the interest rate, the key interest rate increases, and then they realize it still doesn't stop the inflation, because the lack of labor combined with the increased public spending and the sanctions is something that the key interest rate cannot stop from creating inflation. So yeah, I agree. I think that's going to be a key moment into, I don't know if it's this year or next year, but at some point this will happen. I think that's the reason why Elon Musk is also pushing so hard to get the far right to win in Germany, and to get the far right he wants to make the government fall in the UK, and he wants the far right to do well in France and so on, because he knows that if the US stops aid to Ukraine, Europe can still save the day and help Ukraine. But if Europe is divided and cannot help Ukraine, then after that it becomes very complicated. So I think that might be one reason why Musk is also pushing for this division of Europe and for these far right parties to win. But I agree with you. And to be honest, war is obviously something that you cannot associate the word optimism and war together, because it's so horrible. But I'm quite optimistic overall, because I try to look past the Russian propaganda. As you know, a war is not a football game, and the objectives of both sides are not the same. And if looking at the initial objectives of the war, the strategic initial objectives, Russia is in a position where I don't really see how they could reach them. Because in 2026, there will still be some countries that just need Ukraine to win, including Northern Europe, Poland, Baltics. And even if the aid would decrease, Ukraine's own production combined with the help of these countries, I think it's impossible almost for Russia. Russia can get a better outcome than what they deserve, but I doubt that they can really reach their initial objectives in this war. And because of that, I think as Russia started this war on their own terms, with their own objectives that they set for themselves, if they fail to reach them, then they don't win the war. Of course, the propaganda and so on is a different story. They can sell any type of story. But to me, Ukraine is winning the war right now, as you said, and I think Ukraine will win. But it's also not a message that I want to push forward too much, because I don't want people to get comfortable and to think that we can just stop helping, or Ukraine needs as much help as possible. But I think with the right help and with some patience, it's really possible for Ukraine to win this war.
Yeah, I believe so. And I agree with you. We have another commentary from Camille, who says Putin didn't make mistake by invading Ukraine, because, that was the only way to prevent Ukraine joining NATO. So, first of all, you probably know that since 2014, when Russia annexed Crimea, Ukraine could not join NATO physically. Because if you have an ongoing conflict on your territory, that is according to the law, according to the rules created by NATO, you cannot join NATO. That is why Ukraine could not join NATO in 2014, in 2021, in 2022, that was freaking possible. If Russia tells you that no, it was because we didn't want NATO to expand, Ukraine had ongoing hybrid Russian war on its territory that basically froze Donbass. And as much as we hated it, but it froze Donbass, and Ukraine could not become member of NATO. Even more than that, Even in 2014, when Russia invaded Ukraine and occupied its territories of Donbass and Crimea, majority Ukrainians, according to polls, they were against Ukraine joining NATO. I think opinion switched somewhere around like 17th, 18th, I don't remember exactly, but 2014, as soon as Russia annexed Ukraine, 70% Ukrainian Crimea, 70% Ukrainians still considered Russia good people. 70% Ukrainians still considered Russia like their brotherly nation and friends. And only later, when Ukrainian families lost their fathers and sons and brothers on the war and sisters, over time, I believe around 2018, 2019 maybe, this opinion changed, and majority of people only then started realizing that Ukraine needs NATO protection, but at the same time Ukraine could not join NATO physically because Russia had annexed Crimea and invaded Donbass. That's why Ukraine could not become NATO member, no matter how hard you try. No matter how hard you try to bullshit everybody that Ukraine was gonna become a member in like 2022. That would be only possible if Russia removed its troops from Donbass and Crimea, but we know that it was impossible. Another thing, regarding NATO, so there is this myth broadly used by Russians to explain their atrociousness. Why Russians steal toilets? It's because they don't want NATO to expand, basically. This is how they explain that. Why do they rape toddlers in Bucha? That's because they don't want NATO to expand. There is a myth. I literally saw this individual in the commentaries. I didn't say F you retard. I actually explained that you are wrong. Like Gorbachev didn't sign this stuff. So they say that there is a document regarding NATO expansion. And according to this document, signed by Gorbachev, signed by America and everybody else, NATO promised not to expand an inch eastwards. I don't know where they take that like phrase, an inch, but I love it. And when you ask, like, can you show me the document? So they show the document that is related to Eastern Germany and Western Germany. They declared that not a single not German soldier will enter the territory of GDR, right? And they say, like, here you see, like, this is the document that says that NATO will not expand eastward. No, in this document, it's clearly said that NATO soldiers will not go to the Eastern Germany. But it wasn't saying anything about Ukraine, about Sweden, about Finland. I don't know where people take that shit, but there is no document signed by Russia and NATO saying that NATO promises not to expand and not to include new members. It's bullshit. It doesn't exist in nature. You will not find it in Google because it literally, the only place it exists in is Russian imagination, like seriously. Besides that place, like in Narnia maybe, besides that place, you will not find it.
And the worst is if people go on Google and write, ask that question to Google if there was a promise or not. They will actually see Gorbachev say that there was no promise because he was asked this question and he said that there was none. So the man who was there himself said there was no promise. And again, if you look at Finland, we have 1,300 kilometers of border with Russia. Russia has no troops on our border right now, even if we are in NATO. So maybe they don't fear NATO that much at the end. They know that it's not an offensive alliance, it's a defensive alliance. But it's a useful excuse to invade.
Yeah, absolutely. How many countries were invaded by NATO since it was
In terms of
created?
land grab, uh, to actually like invaded in the sense of Russia invading Ukraine to actually take the land. I don't think that any, but NATO has participated in operations. But that's also one thing. For example, Libya is a case where Russia always talks about Libya and about NATO in Libya. But actually, Medvedev back then was okay with the operation when he was the president back then, and Putin was mad at Medvedev for being okay. And people tend to simplify history. But yeah, NATO is a defensive alliance, and as you said, it's quite effective. No one has been attacked who is a member
Yeah,
by Russia. So
yeah. Okay, Iraq, Afghanistan. I don't remember like 30 NATO members literally rushing to Iraq and Afghanistan and literally
no.
like erasing those places.
And France, for example, did
Um,
not participate in Iraq, and France is a member of NATO. But they
yeah,
were not in the active
um,
command at that point. They only rejoined after Sarkozy came back. But yeah, no, and again, it wasn't a land grab. It's not like Iraq is the US right now or something. So
absolutely. How many countries were annexed by NATO? I don't really remember any case. I can tell you a lot of countries that were annexed by Russia, by the way, even in 20th and 21st centuries. But NATO, I don't remember such cases. Generally, it makes me so I don't know, how to call this. This shit is cringy as fuck when, for example, people from America or United Kingdom who don't support NATO, they go NATO evil. You go against your own country, dude. Like you go against your own shield against the Russian threat, Chinese threat, terrorist threat. I don't understand how people can just hate it so much. But on the other hand, people are different. The other day, I rewatched that episode with Dave Smith, who was defending Osama bin Laden. He was like, yeah, on Joe Rogan's show, he was like, yeah, you know that I am like the biggest peaceful supporter of the world, but we should have talked to Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden wasn't heard, he wasn't understood. So people are so different, and some of them are extremely crazy. Okay, guys, we are reaching the end of this stream, and I'm so happy that you are here with us. And there was another question from Thorben, who asks, what's the name of Joni's channel? So you can find the link to Joni's channel in the description to the stream. And also, I think we should let people rest finally. Joni, is there anything you would like to say to our viewers?
first of all, I'd like to thank you for having me on this stream, and again, thank you for all the work you've done for Ukraine. I remember at the beginning of the war, I was watching your updates as videos when during the very beginning, and it's really great that people still watch these videos and that you've built such a community of people watching this, because it keeps people, it makes them remember that the war is still going. And yeah, I think people, the best way people can help Ukraine is to donate if they can, and if they cannot donate, then keep Ukraine in people's minds. Go fight disinformation online. When someone says something that's wrong, to correct them, and not do like Elon Musk and say something mean to them, but to actually do what you did with that one comment and explain to them why they are wrong. And other than that, unfortunately, there's only patience that can help right now, because this horrible situation is still going to continue, and there's no other option than to continue fighting. So hopefully people will remember Ukraine and do what they can, and that's all we can do for now. But thanks for having me, and thanks for all the work you do.
Thank you so much, brother. It was my honor and my privilege. Really nice to see you once again after 2023, I believe. Quite a while passed already. Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing your story, and also thank you so much for supporting Ukraine and doing your charity, because Ukrainian people will never forget this. This is extremely, extremely important for Ukrainian people, and we will be always grateful for your support and for support of other people like you. Also, I would like to say thank you to our moderators. I would like to say thank you to everybody in the chat, everybody who commented and asked questions. I liked your questions big time. Big thanks also to people who don't really understand the situation, but I at least tried to explain a bit from my standpoint. Dear friends, thank you so much. Thanks for watching. We will see you next time. Joni, don't run yet. We'll see you next time. And as as always, be safe. Don't forget to eat something good and celebrate 800,000 plus with ice cream, because it's totally worth it. I had the vanilla one with whatever. Guys, see you later. Be safe.
See you. Bye.